and abroad. So what are we looking at today? Today we are looking at securing the financial future at any age. So securing our financial future at any age is the topic that we're looking at. And as we see that we're now live on Facebook and YouTube, let me just once again say a pleasant good evening to you who are joining us on Facebook and YouTube at Q95 FM. This is Roots Connections on Q, episode number 23 for today, April 27th, 2022. And I am your host, Simone Mathieu. So let us welcome our panel. We have quite a panel here with us this evening, and I'm especially happy to see that we have folks representing those of us who live in Dominica and the Caribbean area. So we have Miss Luana Laurent in Dominica, as well as Mr. Phoenix Belfield in Dominica, the Caribbean area. And then we also have Mr. Badoui, Mr. Hibis Badoui, Badwill, for those of us in Dominica, as well as Miss Courtney Drigo here in the US, because I think we can all agree that this is a topic that is important wherever we live. So let us have our panel unmute their mics as they say good evening and they introduce themselves to our audience. And we always begin with ladies first. So let's start with Miss Laura, Miss Luana Laura. Please introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about you and a little bit about your business.
Hi, good evening, Simone. Good evening, listeners. Good evening, panelists. It's a pleasure to be here with you all this evening. My name is Luana Laura. I am the founder and CEO of Finance Focus. Finance Focus is a financial literacy firm which also provides business support to micro and small businesses. We are currently celebrating our 5-year anniversary. We are an online business extended through social media, and we have a popular YouTube series called Financial Fridays where we share free financial tips. I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Yes, thank you for being with us, Luana, and we're looking forward to finding more out about everything that you do to help us to secure our financial future. And then we have Miss Courtney Drigo, and I have to tell you, Courtney is what I like to think of as the promise of the immigrant, because so many of us leave Dominica, the Caribbean, wherever we are born, and we migrate to other countries to seek opportunities for ourselves, but we also seek opportunities for the children that we bring into this world. And so Miss Courtney Drigo is the daughter of Mr. Anthony Drigo out of Dominica, and she has made quite a name for herself as an attorney at law, as well as someone who is very involved in not only learning about financial education, but being willing to share everything that she knows. So Courtney, it is a pleasure meeting you. It's a pleasure having you on the program, and introduce yourself, please.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Simone. It is a pleasure to be on this panel. It's a pleasure to have listeners listening in as we talk about this very important topic. As Simone mentioned, I do live in the United States, but I am a daughter of the soil. I was born in Dominica, so I'm a very, very proud Dominican. I am an attorney, but also a financial enthusiast. And because of that, I started a podcast called Spondulix, and that means money. And this is where I'm sharing with the world, sharing with my community, these things that I'm learning about money as I interact with a lot of attorneys who have been in the game a lot longer, who happen to know a lot more than I do about finance, but also as I interact with people in the academic world. They happen to know a lot of things about finance that I had never heard about. So as I was picking these things up, I wanted to make sure that other people that looked like me or had my experiences and people in my community could also learn about these things. So I started this podcast called Spondulix, and that is where I share these tidbits of financial information that I'm picking up along my journey. So happy to be on this panel.
Yes, thank you so much, Courtney. And we'll go over now to Mr. Phoenix Belfield. Please introduce yourself.
Pleasant good evening to everyone, and thank you for having me on this broadcast. My name is Phoenix, and I represent the credit union movement in Dominica. As we all say, credit union movement in Dominica is not just about institution; it's actually a way of life. And because in terms of credit union membership density, population density were the highest in the world. Uh, Credit union, being part of a vibrant credit union movement and learning the art of saving and spending and investing is part and parcel of what we do. So I'm pretty excited to be here with the rest of the distinguished panel, and I look forward to a very fruitful and engaging discussions.
Yes, thank you so much. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Davis Badwell, Dewey if you live in America, Badwell if you live in Dominica. And this is a man who is so committed to securing our financial future. He will take your text message and respond to you at 2 o'clock in the morning. Not that I'm advocating that you text him at 2 o'clock in the morning, but I just know his level of commitment to Dominica. And so, Mr. Badwell, please introduce yourself.
Good evening, Doc. How are you? You're looking fabulous. And to the other distinguished panelists, I want to say good night to everyone. As those of you who have listened in the past, I run Badui Financial. And if you're from Dominica, it's Badwil Financial. Basically, in partnership with American Classic Agency out of Jacksonville, Florida. American Classic Agency is actually one of the largest own African American and women owned IMOs agencies in the continental United States. So I take great pride in that. Um, I was born in Dominica, Monseigneur La Pointe, and I will always put a little patois in there because every time I go to Dominica, they tell me my accent, I have an accent, and I just get mad. So I grew up in Boston, Massachusetts. I left about 45 years ago. Dominica was not even independent when I left. But you know what? Dominica will always be home. I love Dominica. Um, my friends who know me always says, "Man, you're a Dominican at heart," and I say that's right. But what I try to do is to educate Middle American families about non-traditional financial concepts that they're not aware of. I'll just tell you real quickly. Today, a friend of mine hit me up. Her mom passed recently, and she says, I don't want to mess up this investment, not this investment, actually, this inheritance that I received. And, I just commented on her picture today and she hit me up and wanted my help. And that's how I work. I don't actually chase clients. Clients come to me because by posting on social media. And I believe that I'm so glad that we have someone from the credit union in Dominica on the panel because I left I had just started First Form when I left. Okay. And so I don't know anything about the Dominican banking system. I do have an account at a credit union and also get a bank account there. But Dominica is home. And as we converse this evening, I will pontificate more on exactly what I do.
Yes, thank you for that. Thank you for that to the entire panel. And again, if you're just joining us, this is Roots Connections on Q, and we are discussing securing your financial future at any age. Our guests, our panel tonight, Mr. Felix Belfield, General Manager, Dominica Corporate Societies Leagues, Miss Luana Laura, Founder and CEO of Finance Focus Consultancy, Mr. Havis Bardui, owner of Bardui Financial Services, and Miss Courtney Drigo, attorney at law and financial enthusiast. So let me say good evening to our panel. Let me say also good evening to everyone who is joining us. A special good evening to the Q95 family at home and abroad. If you're joining us on Facebook, please don't forget to share the live. Let everyone know that we are here and we are ready for another great 2 hours of programming. A special good evening to Mr. G as well as Lambi, and showing our engineer who keeps us connected. Don't forget, if you missed any episodes of our programs, you can head to q95da.com for all the best in programming and for any episodes you may have missed. For example, our last episode, we talked about, are we missing out on financial opportunities because we are not pursuing the right career path? So lots of great programming over Q95DA. You certainly want to take a look at it. So this evening, what exactly are we exploring? So some of the topics we're hoping to cover this evening include, at what age should we begin to teach our children and to plan for their financial future? We will also discuss simple changes we can all make today to secure our financial future, why it is never too late to work towards our financial goals, as well as how can we leave a financial legacy to secure the future of our children or any young person that we care about. But I think that the panel will agree with me this evening that probably the most important place to start right now is why do we procrastinate when it comes to getting our financial house together? So, for the entire panel, let us address that particular question. What are your thoughts? Why are we always procrastinating on securing our financial future? Thoughts, anyone?
Well, Doc, I believe simply because lack of literacy. I think people are sometimes prideful, embarrassed, and sometimes they just don't know where to go. Financial literacy is not taught in schools. I mean, I know people with college degrees, advanced degrees. I mean, I just spoke with someone from Dominica with a PhD, college professor here in the United States, and I was going over some concepts with them they've never heard of. So what I'm trying to say here that it doesn't matter where you are in the journey, and I think later we're going to address how early one should start. But I think if you don't know anything, I tell people do this, especially most people, especially Dominicans, go to church, right? And people contribute, right? Some people tithe or give an offering. Well, you return unto the Lord, return to yourself as well. I don't care if you're making $100 a week, put $5 aside, put $10 aside, do something. And, you know, little becomes much. And if you're in America, some people and in other countries as well, you may have different options where, I don't know, mutual funds, stocks, bonds. And we'll talk about how you can use life insurance as well to do that. But I think most people are scared. Most people don't know. And some people, because it was not taught, like most things, you have to learn it. You have to learn how to use your phone and different things when you get a new phone. It's the same thing with financial literacy. I think people just need to sit back, take a moment and say, man, I gotta do better. And I think they can. Sometimes they need a little pushing. But remember, folks, if you know nothing about financial literacy, you know, if and I'm picking on Dominicans because I love them so well. If you want to go to the Fed that's happening, right? And the Fed is next month or in 3 months, you have to put a little something aside, right? You guys like the accent? But the most important thing here is this: saving is paramount, and you have to start somewhere. That's what I say.
Absolutely. And Phoenix,
I
I see you
agree.
nodding away. So let's come over to you. And then Luana, we're going to come to you.
Forgive me for the bias because when Mr. Badwell mentioned about the credit union, it already touched on a particular nerve because here in Dominica, we not only preach financial literacy and finance focus, we instill it from a very early age through our credit unionettes program. So we have these special savings programs at the primary school and high school levels where students can learn to save. And so they save at their institution, at their respective schools. And then at the end of, upon graduating, at the end of the school year, the school term, they would now be able to withdraw these savings. And quite a few students have really remarked as to how it was a tedious exercise for them to have to be constantly putting away these sums. It was an instilled discipline. But at the end of the exercise, when they're through with the graduation, and they're now able to withdraw 3,000, 5,000, some even more than that, then they recognize how important it was the entire exercise. So the back to the question, Simone, about why we procrastinate. Uh, I've listened to quite a few persons talk on the topic of financial freedom, financial literacy, and including my good friend Luana. And one of the things that have really caused us is a lot of persons say that they don't have the resources. And a lot of times it is not a matter of if we have the resources. Many times we're on the road, we meet small business owners and individuals. They would come to the credit union, they would tell you, listen, I have a great idea and I want to start a business, but I don't have money. And my common question to these persons is, do you need money to start your business? And a lot of times they would just be baffled and say, yes, 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 location we need. I said, listen, sometimes you can start small and grow eventually. So a lot of time, the first point is that most people think that they can't do with the resources that they currently have without taking an audit or without taking stock of what they really have. and what they really need. That is why, for example, from the business context, you always ask people to do a business plan, because what it does, it takes the idea from concept to reality and allows you to have a preview into that business activity, and then you're able to articulate what are the resources that you'll need, and what is it that you already have as part of your capital. So a lot of times, depending on the services that you're going to do, you may not require a large inflow of cash. But because if you don't take the time to analyze what is it you have and what you need, then you'll always come up with the excuse that you don't have. And some of us were just practically serial procrastinators.
Mhm.
We
It's a
just,
whole other topic.
yeah, it's, we just like the idea of being called procrastinator in chief. We everything is about procrastination, because we always overthink. One guy once said, start before you're ready. So we always overthink about what we have and what we don't have and what we need to do. And sometimes there's the other part of it, which may not necessarily be that of a serial procrastinator, but that of somebody who is not necessarily a risk taker. So this is the person who, or these are the persons who fall into the bracket whereby they always overthink. So they'll never get ready. Today they have an idea, they believe that they need to get this to get there, and then tomorrow the goalpost is moved consecutively. So you have the serial procrastinators, you have those who are the zero risk takers, and you have those who believe that they never have enough. And that is why generally we procrastinate. At least that's why I procrastinated.
Yeah.
So neither of these behavioral traits are required or are encouraged, but it is part of life. And as Mr. Badwell said, this traditional schooling in our education institutions, primary school, up until recently, did not focus a lot on financial literacy and financial education. We're taught to study these subjects. People are doing
Mhm.
20, 30, 15 CXCs. God in heaven
Mhm.
knows what they'll become. And we start to breed confused individuals when somebody does business, science, and math and all of those things. And so we cannot focus. But when we get to a certain age, then we realize that we do not have real life skills. And this is where this a program like this becomes so critically important, that apart from the education, we need the real life skill to deal with the matter at hand, managing your finance.
Yeah, absolutely. Luana, let me come over to you and then Courtney.
Yes, I concur with the sentiments of Mr. Belfield and Mr. Badwell, but I have 2 points to add on that. Firstly, I believe it's because sometimes we underestimate the value of self care. Self care in the sense, we take care of our health physically, we take care of our mental health, but we neglect our financial health. And financial self care in itself is a foundation in ensuring that all your other areas of health is wholesome. And because of the lack of understanding of the value of self care, we tend to neglect our finances. And secondly, like you all were saying, you can give the individuals the resources, you can present them with the education to learn, but we are first humans by nature. And sometimes all we need is a helping hand. We need an accountability partner. And you will find that in our environment there are not many people that will help you to manage your money. Yes, the banks are there, they will give you the money to spend, you will go to other institutions, they'll give you the opportunities to build wealth. However, there are very limited opportunities to help you manage that wealth. So we need the programs to teach people in school, like Mr. Belfield explained. We need the adults education to improve when it comes to financial literacy, and that is truly where I believe we should start.
Yeah, thank you. Courtney.
I think part of it is because we believe it's very complicated. When we talk about
Mhm.
money and we think about
Mhm.
numbers, all of us start thinking about math. And
Mhm.
many of us have a sense that, the math we did in school was incredibly complicated and we didn't know how to do it or we struggled with it. So when we think about money and we start thinking numbers, immediately our sense is that I can't do it. It's complicated. Only the people who are accountants who have studied this can do this well. And that just simply isn't true, right? When we talk about individual and personal finance, most of us are capable of learning the basic concepts to manage our own money. It is not at all as complicated as we think, and it does not require, epic and complicated math. And we have the capabilities to do it. But I think a big part of the reason that people procrastinate is because when it comes to money, we immediately think complications, difficulty, and that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, and I want to stay on you, Courtney, because we had a great conversation. And one of the things we talked about is the fact that many times we look at the opportunity of migrating to the US, Canada, wherever it may be, as wonderful opportunities. But then one of the things we don't realize is that we are starting from scratch. So, kind of just tell us your experience in terms of not knowing anything and how you went on a journey to figure out the finances as it relates to the US and what you've learned along the way, and how that has benefited you, and how now you are giving back to the community because you realize that there's so many Courtneys in the world who came up to maybe go to college like many of us did, but had no financial education, and how it placed us at a disadvantage.
Yeah, so I think to start, a big part of it is a lot of us do come to this country for education. And there's a whole system, if you're thinking the United States and if you're thinking about Canada, there's a whole system of financial aid that we don't have back home, right? There's a whole application process that's based on your parents' financial circumstances that the government can then contribute to your education. And that's not so in Dominica, there are some systems in which the government will contribute to your education, but it looks nothing like the system that we have here. So that's not something that we have in practice. And that's not something that, as a young person, our parents are very familiar with. So one, starting off with thinking about how do you fund your education? And sometimes that means student loans. And if you're going the student loan route, figuring out what interest rates look like and which loans are predatory, which loans you should stay away from, what your credit history needs to look like so that you can get a student loan that's at a good interest rate rather than a student loan that is at an incredibly hard and high interest rate. So thinking about education in that way, how are you going to pay for it? What assistance is out there? Can the government help? Are there scholarships? If you're going the student loan route, what does that look like? So figuring out that math. But beyond that, once you enter the professional realm, there's this whole world of retirement, of 401ks and 403bs and Roth IRAs that, again, we're completely unfamiliar with coming from back home. This system of I can contribute from my paycheck before it comes to me, and before taxes, you can contribute money to a retirement account. And sometimes your employer will match the amount that you contribute. And not only that, you will invest that money into the stock market. And now we're thinking about, what does the stock market look like? What should I be investing in? Where do I go with these questions? Who do I call? And so those are a lot of the questions that I've had to figure out. One, being educated in the US and then starting my professional career in the US. And like I said, it turns out it's not that hard. It's just finding the information, and I am sharing that information. And so, yeah, I think there are a number of points we have to think about when we move. You don't just land here and everything is simple. I wish it were that way. Very few things turn out to be simple. And sometimes it does take some research, and it takes some asking questions, and it takes people being willing to share that information. But the systems are different.
Yeah, and I want to come to you, Havis, because I know you as well have some experience with this. And then what I want us to talk about is ensuring that as we are raising our children, one of the important values we ought to be teaching them is the importance of money as an important value. We spend a lot of time teaching our children the value of education, the value of family, the value of religion, the value of being a good citizen, being a good member of society, being a good sibling, being a good family member. But why are we not teaching our children the value of money when it is one of the topics that will have the greatest impact on their life. But Havis, I also want you to touch on the topic that Courtney was just discussing, because I know you two have some experience. But before you do, let us acknowledge our Facebook audience. We have an audience coming in on Facebook. Jennifer Cuffy, I see you. You say good night, guys. Thank you for being here, Jennifer. Peony Shirley, good night, guys. I will be listening from St. Thomas. David Joseph, always great to have you on board. Portia Sylvester, nice to see you. Adelaide Joseph, good evening to you. Evelina Blah says good evening, Simone, and your panel. Evelina, thank you for joining us, and thank you everyone who's joining us on Facebook. Dee Easter, thank you for being here. Everyone who's joining us on Facebook, YouTube, and Q95. Havis, over to you.
Thank you, Doc. Awesome. The counselor gave some great points, but I want to say this. Mostly all West Indians grew up in church, right? And in the Bible, in Proverbs 13:32, it says, and I quote, "A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children." So I have children, but I don't have children's children yet. So my goal is for what I build is for my children to pass it on to their children. Now, the counselor made some great points about 457s, 43Bs, 401ks, TSPs, with the thrift savings plans for federal employees. And I'm not opposed to those because I started my career in 1985 as a banker. And I remember in 1987 when Black Friday happened and the market crashed, I remember a guy actually in downtown Boston, went around and shot in Merrill Lynch's office. I said this to say this. I'm not opposed. Like when you come to America, you learn, like the counselor said, all these different, I should say, vehicles, retirement vehicles. But I want to tell our listeners this, especially those here in America. If you have children and they want to go to post-secondary education, college or whatever, have you ever thought that all your assets are naked? And when you apply for federal grants and student loans and student aid, federal aid, all of those things are seen. Doc, I know you are doing something that maybe some of our panelists don't know, where you can use a different vehicle and it can be accessed tax-free. Now, I tell people this. I'm not opposed to investing, nor am I opposed, because I was an FA, a financial advisor for years, working for some big companies, with mutual funds and bonds and all that stuff. I no longer do that because I feel that if you don't control taxes, and you don't, in America, Congress writes bills and the president signs it into law. And if I ask this question, do you think taxes are going to be higher in the future? Or is it going to stay the same? Or is it going to be lower? Well, if you think hard, you will say higher, and you are correct. So if you don't control taxes, when is the best time to pay your taxes? Now, not in the future. Because think of a farmer. Do you want your all your profits on the seed or the harvest? It's very important that people understand this, Doc. Check this out. This is what the average American does, and the average Dominican who comes here and gets a green card or becomes a U.S. citizen. Let's say at my age, 13, you come up here, you go to college, whatever, 22, you get a job, you get to a 401k, 403b, 457 TSP, and for 30, 40 years, you contribute to it. This is what you did. You went into business with the government. You paid all the overhead. You paid you took the risk of investing. And in 30 years or 40 years, the government is going to tell you how much you owe them. Now, if I ask any one of my distinguished panelists about let's go into business, and in 30 years, you're going to tell me how much you owe me, you're not going to do that. But that's what people do because they don't know. So what I try to do is to educate. I'm saying have a leverage or, hedge against the losses by using non-traditional concepts. Like, for example, one of them is life insurance. You don't even know that you can take all the financial services companies like the banks and mutual fund companies, and you can put them into insurance companies and there would be a surplus. Most people don't understand that companies like banks have BOLI, what's called bank-owned life insurance. That's how they compensate executives. Coli, Walmart, corporate owned life insurance. So I tell people, do what you do what you know. If your company's matching, fine, it's free money. But don't put a penny over that and put it into something that you can access tax favored and get a guaranteed lifetime income tax free. Because remember, tax deferral, if you have three kinds of monies: taxable, tax deferred, and tax free. I'm not a smart guy, but I know I'd rather the tax free. But what I will say is this: she's right. You come here, you don't understand, you learn, you do the best that you can, and some people, they end up doing well. There's a young person from Daly, he's my age now, and when I saw what he did, I was so proud of him. However, if you have 800,000 or $1 million in your 401k, you don't have that. What tax bracket are you in? 28%, 35%? That belongs to Uncle Sam. So how about this? Hedge against your losses. If you have kids, what if your kids say, like, I might get in trouble for saying this. My 22-year-old quit school after 2 years when he was 20. He said, college is a facade. He wants to be a rapper. But you know what? What if there were 5 to 9 college savings plans? What are you going to do with those funds? I tell people, make sure you talk to not just an FA that does stocks and bonds, mutual funds. Make sure you talk to a certified financial planner or someone who uses insurance as a foundation, because your financial future is built like a pyramid with an insurance foundation. All of us are sitting in the building. If there's no foundation, it cannot last. So when you have markets that's up and down, like yesterday, the markets were like down 800 points. People are ready to relax. If you're young, you're going to be good. But what if you're in your 50s or 60s and you're taking all these losses? Like a friend of mine kept calling me yesterday. Man, I'm losing money. I'm like, you know what? You're going to be all right. But the key is hedge against it by using non-traditional concepts. And that's what I teach every
Yeah,
child.
and Havis, that's why I'm really happy that you and the rest of the panelists are here, because we have so many questions and so much of this can seem confusing. So what I want to do at the end of the program is ensure that we give out contact information so that our people can have access to the information that we need. So back to the questions about teaching the value of money to our young people. And since I know the credit union does a good job on this, I will save you for last and go over to Luana for her thoughts on the importance of teaching our children. How do we get children excited about money, about saving, about investing? What are your thoughts on that, Luana? And I'm especially excited because I saw what you did with the convent high school. So tell us about that.
Thank you, Simone. In our environment, growing up, the topic of money used to be taboo. Your parents would not want you to know how much they make. If you would go to the shop, they would tell you you can't have that, but they won't tell you why. But right now we're coming into a generation who is proactive. They're eating information off the internet. And one of the popular sites that is teaching financial literacy is TikTok. You can learn a lot of things on TikTok, and they're finding creative
Interesting.
ways to do that. So in that respect, you have a new generation with a different learning style. You have some with learning disabilities. So you have to find creative ways to engage them. Now, with social media, the information is everywhere. You can filter as much as you like, but the information is available. It comes back to, at what point should you start teaching your child about the value of money? And many researchers will, they will say as young as 3 years, others will indicate it's 7. But the key thing is how. People always tell me, you tell people a lot about the theory, but it's the practice that helps us get where we're going. And with the difference in the learning styles, away from the traditional ways, we have to find creative ways to teach our our children. I don't have children as yet, but I'm a young person from my experiences with money, from living with my family, seeing my parents deal with money. There are some things that I can, recommend to parents on how to teach their children the value of money. And one of the critical things is to practice what you preach. You cannot aim to teach your child about saving, about investing, about taking insurance when you don't do it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to practice what we preach. Show them your spending habits. Children are very observant. Young adults are very observant. They feed off your energy. They feed off your actions. So you instill in them the habits of saving. You explain to them the value of saving money for a rainy day, of having an emergency fund. You also give them opportunities to earn money. I remember my parents would give us chores to do and reward us accordingly. And
Mm-hmm.
that in itself served many purposes. It instilled discipline, but it also assists us in building character. Mr. Badwell spoke about tithing. Show your children the value of giving. For those who give tithes at church, let them also contribute at mass. Pick a charity, have discussions about donations and giving back. And of course, most importantly, like I said, lead by example. You want to model the behavior you want your children to have about money. So, yes, while it's important to tell them about money, instilling them the values about money, which may be difficult to do because of the past, it was taboo. Speaking about money is no longer taboo. We're going to be spending money until the day that we pass away. So it's important to speak about it and practice smart money habits and build that legacy. Show them that we care about their future, and money is a significant part of that.
Yeah, and before I go over to Phoenix, just kind of tell us what you're doing at the convent high school because I think that's important.
So essentially, when I attended the convent high school, I was a part of the credit unionette. You can say that this is what gave me my passion
Phoenix is happy.
for managing money. So, Mr. Belville, kudos to the credit union on that initiative. I moved from the credit unionette. My friends used to tell me every snack time I would stand by the snack line and ask them to contribute into their credit unionette. But I believe that, the conversation needed to expand. So in order to complement the objective of the credit unionette, I recently donated a financial steps mural which signified the a saving plan from first form through fifth form. So, for example, if you just save as little as $1 a day, if you enter first form, second form, all the way through fifth form, you would amass an amount of money. But what it does also show is that the earlier you start to save, and even with the small amounts that you save, it can yield great rewards in the long term. I was speaking with some of the fifth formers, and when they saw the small value that they would have if they started saving in fifth form, they're like, boy, if I had started saving since fifth form, I would have had a lot of money. So the effect of these steps is to keep a reminder every time they walk up those steps, is to keep a reminder that money is important. The mural also includes a few financial tips. Be wary of bad debt, learn the art of self control, invest wisely. All of these things are the foundation of building a good relationship with money.
Yes, thank you. And Mr. Phoenix, let me come over to you because I know the credit union has a good handle on education where it comes to finances. And I also want you to tell us a little bit more about the credit union act that Luana talked about. So over to you.
Thank you very much, Simone, and again, I'm so enjoying the discussions. I'm taking notes, but the very important points that were mentioned by my colleague. One of the things I wanted to touch on before we get into the credit unionettes, really, one of the fears for persons with money or those aspiring to have money is about what Luana mentioned about saving, having proper discipline. But another thing that we found out, particular from the credit union side, is that some people develop a phobia for borrowing. And, most people think, okay, listen, if you save enough, you will have enough. What about investing? What about smart spending? What about borrowing? If you look at the behavior of the wealthy, and the not so wealthy about what they borrow for and how they make the returns on those borrowing. So, as I said, the somebody once said that the wealthy spend like they're poor, and the poor spend like they're wealthy.
Mhm.
So we see a loan at the credit union and we say, "Ugh, I can't afford that." But when we look at our spending, we're spending much more than we can afford to spend. So it is not only about saving, because we can save and we can go to an institution and we can earn a small percentage interest on it. But what about investing? What about borrowing against, and there's a concept in business which we call mind your own business, or other people's money. What you use other people's money so you don't have to upfront. So you use your credit union money to reinvest in your vision and in your what is it you're seeking to do. And then once that materializes and it multiplies, then you pay it back. And then you keep with the profits of that. So it is we need to look at it not only from the vantage point of saving, but also how do we look at investing? How do we look at maximizing our returns, and how do we look at borrowing as well? Now, you mentioned about the credit union, and one of the things that have really helped us to grow as a movement is the fact that credit union's relationship with the average Dominican begins when they're a child. It even in some cases starts beyond or way before, sorry, they even get into the high school or primary school. Most grandmothers or most parents would just simply take their child to the credit union and open a junior account for them. Or if they're in the school, they open a credit union net account. And the reason for the credit union net account and as against the junior account is that we've realized that the children develop a lot of the critical or foundational habits in the school. And so, if they can develop proper spending and saving habits within the school environment, then it can help them along the way, just as it has done for Luana. So, you want to ensure that because of the fact that they have this, what they call the iron sharpened iron mentality, where everybody's seeing, and the thing is, it is that we plaster it in front of for everybody to see. So when people say at the end of the world, you get a Super Savers Award. Oh, this child just finished saving and this child is able to withdraw 13,000 from the bank, from the credit union, and this child is able to withdraw 11,000. Everybody that would have backed at the idea of saving a couple years ago are now looking in awe, and it is telling the other folks after them that, hey, listen, we need to start saving. So we believe that a lot of life discipline, the foundational block of childhood and adulthood, starts within the school environment. And
Mhm.
that is why our focus has been on the credit union, giving them an early interest in terms of saving, but not only saving. The credit union, it also provides a stepping ground for the students to learn the art of leadership and management as well. So they can be elected to different positions: treasurer, secretary, president, and so forth. And so they can learn the art of not only helping other children to manage their funds, but also the art of leadership. And it's the same habit and the same uh, cultural experience that is translated when you get to the credit unions per se, when you're able to save and you're also able to be a volunteer on the credit union movement. So for us, it's not just about learning how to save, but learning how to lead, learning how to make proper decisions. And in fact, one of the things that we were extremely proud about in the movement is that we're the only financial institution that forces people to save while they spend.
Mm.
So if you come to the credit union for a loan, you sign a contract that says, I'm agreeing to take out $100 from all of my payments to put in a savings account. So if I have a mortgage or if I have another loan to pay, a vehicle loan or what have you, and this vehicle loan is for a 5 year period, just imagine if I have to make installments of $2,500 a month, and $100 of that goes towards the a special saving. At the end of paying that loan, I would have the equivalent of $6,000 in the account, and this is just $6,000 as principal, but also you'll be getting interest on that saving. So by the time you finish paying off that $15,000 to $20,000 vehicle loan that you have, you would have already accumulated a special savings at that. So it's not only to borrow the loan and to pay it back and pay in some instances For other institutions, you pay back a large sum. But at the end of the exercise, do we simply leave you with the asset if there's anything remaining of it, or you haven't crashed it as yet or something? Do we leave you with just that? No. We instill that discipline of saving. So while you spend, you also save. And we're proud that we're the only financial institution that compels people to develop that thrift spending, that thrift behavior, even while they're going about their daily routines. And that starts for us from early childhood. The communist says that anything that you can teach a child up to the age of 5, they can teach them up to 5 and they can release them to the world, because between 0 and 5 they become like emotional and intelligent sponges. And so once you begin to inculcate those habits in them, I think you're going to have a changed individual for the future.
Yeah, thank you so much. And Courtney, I saw you nodding away, so let me come over to your thoughts. And just a reminder, we will be taking your calls at about the 9 o'clock hour. So if you would like to call and make a contribution to the program, we will be taking your calls in about 10 minutes. But Courtney, let me come over to you. And as we begin this round of discussion, I also want us to focus on the idea of good debt versus bad debt, because I think sometimes we get very confused. And I like how Phoenix put it in terms of the importance of borrowing, because many times we've been taught, oh, you don't want to borrow money, you don't want to owe anybody, anything you can pay for upfront is better. And that is not always the case. So Courtney, let me come over to you for your thoughts.
Yeah, so first, I just want to note that it's really cool that Luana is on this panel and was a part of the credit unionette. It's a very full circle moment, and now she's passionate and working in finance. I thought that was really amazing. And that's like seeing the work, right? Like seeing the product of the work. And that is incredible. I love that on one of the steps at the convent high school, one of the steps that you noted was there is a difference. You said avoiding bad debt. And that makes it clear that there is a distinction, right, between good debt and bad debt. And something that I like to talk about on the podcast is that debt can be a tool, right? So we can acquire debt that is at a very high interest rate. In the US, for example, that could be credit card debt. And sometimes those interest rates can be as high as 30 something percent. And many people would deem that bad debt. But there are things such as good debt, right? Like paying for your education can be good debt. If your education provides you a way to then make more income, getting a student loan can be good debt. Debt is a tool. And when we are afraid of it, we don't use that tool. And the truth is that we pay bills every month, right? If you're renting, you pay your rent every month. You pay for your electricity every month. So if you can treat your debt like a bill that you tackle periodically, right, and take away the fear of the big number, and you can see it as a tool that you're using to get where you want to go, that can help us shift the attitude away from, I can't owe anyone, I never want to be in debt. And something, again, from the US perspective, or moving to the US, is this idea of credit. Back home, maybe you can get away with never having credit, but very much in the US, you need to have a credit history. And that requires borrowing. No one is going to give you a car loan here if you have no credit history, if they can't see your name on anything. And so having a credit card is something that people end up being forced to do. And it doesn't have to be that you're deep in credit card debt. You can use your credit card and pay it off every month, but that would help to build your credit history, which therefore makes debt and makes it more available for you to borrow and for you to use money and debt as a tool for your future.
Excellent. Havis, I see you're ready to make a contribution. Jump in. You're muted.
I apologize. I was putting some notes down. First of all, Luana made a great point about TikTok. TikTok, you can learn a lot about financial literacy on TikTok. I want to tell you, even about videos I saw about credit. I followed this person for a little while, and I was taking notes, and like where my credit went to, and people was like, "How did you do that?" I said, "TikTok." You see, social media is good and it's bad. Okay, you see kids twerking. When I was young, I was probably twerking, but it wasn't called twerking, right? But the point was, I said that to make the audience laugh. But I said you can use social media for good or for bad, and I must say, because I'm in America now for a long time. I don't know the financial system in Dominica, but I would submit to anyone, if you're in Dominica, to have a credit union account. Even in America,
Yes.
I advocate having a credit union because even for loans, the rates are more favorable. And I don't, like, again, I'm a non-traditional guy. So I don't think you should save in a bank anyways. And with debt, I have to agree with Mr. Drago. There's good debt and bad debt. A mortgage is a good debt. But you don't, I might get in trouble for this. Um, you don't go into debt to get a tummy tuck. All right. I don't think you should. All right. But but that's neither here or there. Who am I, right, to tell you that? And with credit cards, paid off every month. And what I do on my job, we don't do debt consolidation, we do debt elimination. And it's a program where we use your debt, we eliminate it while we create generational wealth. And there's a concept, a doc, called infinite banking. And most people don't understand about infinite banking. It's not a bank, it's actually a concept where you become the bank. Today, someone hit me up and they got an inheritance. Their mom passed. And I'm like, they want to buy a car. And they're telling me how much they want to spend. And I'm like, well, listen, don't do anything. Let me cook up something for you by Monday. And there's another family member who hit me up, who saw my show 2 weeks ago, hit me up. Someone I haven't seen since high school. I haven't seen her in 40 years because I got out of high school 40 years ago in Boston. And she hit me up. And when we finished, we're going to get out of that program. She would have been dead for 12.9 years. We're going to get out of debt in 2.6 years while creating generational wealth that she can access tax-free. You're like, what are you talking about, Havis? Garçon, what are you saying? The point is, those are concepts that you don't know about. But in Dominica, if you're in Dominica, get a credit union account. I have one, but when I come back home, I got to put money in there. But let
I
me
have one too. I've always had one.
I've always had one, but you have nothing.
Absolutely.
You probably have like $500 or $1,000 in there. But when I come, I got to put money in there because I want to buy a piece of property in Dominica and I want to do it through a Dominican bank. But listen, guys, there is good debt and there's bad debt. Remember, it's how you manage it. And remember, like Ms. Drago said, people think student loans are bad. Yeah, if you just some people are career students. Yeah, you can't be a career student and have your loan in deferment forever. The point is simply this. We will teach you in America how to eliminate your debt. I can teach you if you have a mortgage, credit cards, I should say, an equity line of credit, a car loan, a consumer loan, any kind of debt. We can eliminate your debt from 30 years to 9 years or less by coming up with a way to teach you to save. Just like the credit union concept that he just talked about. I love that in Dominica. Man, you need to tell me more. We need to connect. All right. Dr. Simone.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
People start connecting with them because I want to pick their brains. I want to get Attorney Drago on my show as well. But the important thing is simply this, guys. Remember, it's not what you make, it's what you save. You could be making 100 grand and living like you're making 150, 200 grand. And there was a woman in Maine who was making about 30 or 40 grand a year, and she was a millionaire, the way she lived. And what I can say is simply this. The great Billie Holiday, the blues singer, remember Lady Sings the Blues with Billy D. Williams, when Diana Ross played it. She said, Mama may have, Papa may have, but God bless the child who has his own. And listen to that song. It's the truth. Parents need to teach literacy as young as they can. Some kids might be too immature, but you know what? Teach them anyways. You remember when you were a little kid? I don't know about you guys. I'm older than everybody on the panel. But the thing about it is, I remember I used to go to the store and buy that on credit, right? Some saltfish, some flour, some sugar, and Mama said, get a sweetie to eat. No sweetie, but you get this sweetie. The point I'm trying to make is, but our parents, that was the credit system back then, and they paid every fortnight, every 2 weeks when they got paid. But now people are compromising their bills by spending money for feds. And all I'm saying to my fellow Dominicans and people here in America or in Canada or Europe, wherever you're watching tonight, just manage it properly and learn the literacy that you need to learn, and you can do it. All of these people here, find them on social media and follow them. And then
And we'll give you everyone's contact information before we go as well. So thank you, Havis. Luana, bad debt versus good debt, and then Lambi, we want to come over to you to give the numbers for the phone calls. Luana, please.
Yes, great discussion. Thank you, Simone. We have some real educated minds here. And, they say personal finance is personal, first and foremost. So, my needs may not be your needs, your wants differ. However, when it comes to debt, as Mr. Badwell says, it's all about managing it. Now, the concept that I use at Finance Focus is really enjoying your lifestyle on a budget because we are, like I said, we're human beings. We don't live strictly every day, and life is not static. You make money, you also want to enjoy that money. But with everything in life, it's important to do it in moderation. And the same comes through with debt. If you take a debt to start a business, a sustainable business, that is good debt. If you take a loan to purchase a vehicle that's going to earn income for you, my opinion is that when you're taking loans, when you're looking to borrow, whether from friends, family, because borrowing from family is also a debt as well, it has to bring you some sort of return. And that return needs to be higher than the rate that you're paying. So you're going to take a credit card loan. That is about 20%. But when you borrow that money from the credit card, you do have to pay it back. What are you doing? What are you doing with that money that you're drawing down on that credit card to do? Right? So you have to be mindful what you're using the debt for. I was listening to an individual speak the other day, and he said it rightly. Debt is a part of life. A lot of people strive to be debt free, and that's fine. But if you're taking debt, you be mindful of how you're managing it. You want to be able to live comfortably. Owing someone gives anxiety. And we have to admit that, many of us don't want to be sleeping at night thinking, boy, how am I going to pay this person tomorrow? And a trend that I notice is that people are taking debt to repay debt. Now, this is a bad practice because you will never get out of the debt cycle when you do that. Now, another thing is a lot of people rush into debt consolidation. And what I try to educate them about is that sometimes getting into debt consolidation might put you in a worse position that you are. So you first need to decide if debt consolidation is right for you, because there are many other forms of debt management payments, and Mr. Badwell can attest to that. I speak
Yes,
of the snowball method, the
yes,
avalanche method. There is a method where you pay off the cash flow that's taking the biggest chunk from your salary. You can consider all these things before proceeding into debt consolidation. So, like we say, manage your debt. Debt can be both good and bad. It's all about how you manage it.
Yeah, and I think Courtney said it best for me in terms of using debt as a tool. Debt as a tool. It is what you do with that debt that you are willing to put yourself under. So, Lambi, over to you as we give the phone numbers out and we encourage you to call with any questions or concerns.
Roots Connection and Q. The numbers are 449-3095, 449-3096, 449-3097, 616-4257, 305-432-9624, and we're standing by for your calls.
Yes, and as we await your calls, let me just let us know if a call is coming in. We say good evening to Mr. Peter Carbon. I see that you joined us. Thank you for being here. And we have quite a few comments on the Facebook Live that we will take now. We have Deezer, I think that's the name. She says, hi, Simone. Swinging Jan Williams, I believe that's Swinging Janice. She said, Terrence is very correct. Magdalene Bontif Honore. Good night. Great point. I'm listening attentively. So it seems like our audience is learning quite a bit this evening. So we're very happy about that. Swinging Janice again, or TFSA is also safe and beneficial. Evelina Blah, yes, Lou, a generation of curious minds. Adelaide Joseph, my grandmother taught me the value of money. She did not get much schooling, but was a genius. Thank you. Adelaide Joseph, she also said God first. So you had to give your offering first, and then yourselves. Savings must be intentional. Euclid Royer Bossois, nice to see you as always. Matilda Jolly. Matilda is watching. Thomason, Francois, great conversation. Phoenix, long time. When it comes to financial responsibility, it seems from discipline, knowing the needs from the wants, but it all starts from the elementary level of the family. Very important points. Thank you so much, everyone, for your Facebook comments. Yanni, I opened a credit union account more than 10 years ago and left the island, and I don't even know what's happening with it. Every time I call, they're telling me I can't get information over the phone. So that's a question for you, Phoenix. Matilda, so true. Matilda, the young people should be looking at this show. Absolutely. Get the young people together. And remember, if you missed any portion, you can always go to q95da.com and check out the replay of this program. Adelaide Joseph, I avoid debt like a plague. Oh boy, strong words. Peony Shirley, I save in the credit union in Dominica. When I'll go back home, I took money from my savings, or I will take a loan, and when I go back, I'll pay the loan. Rosalind Severin McLean, always great to see you. Thank you for being here. Phoenix, you have any comments about that person who said they can't get information on their accounts?
Absolutely. And I was just about to post in the chat. We have a general email, dculeague@dcsl.org. If you have any questions reaching the credit unions, quite a few of the credit unions have enabled online contact service, support service. But just in case the lines are clogged, most of the credit unions have a WhatsApp contact that you can reach out. They all have social media pages that you can reach out. But if you're still having difficulty, you can contact us at the league. You can send us an email as well, and we will be sure to put you in touch with the appropriate persons. I mean, some of the points that you mentioned there earlier, Simone, about the person avoiding debt. I hope we can get to that at some point of the discussion. Very interesting feedback.
Yes, if you want to address it, you can go right ahead, because we're going to
Absolutely.
continue with the conversation. If anybody has any comments on the comments that were posted on Facebook, this is the time for us to jump in on those comments.
Well, we have been talking about, and I see Tuesdays with Terrence or Badwill. You mentioned about debt consolidation is not debt elimination. Come in. I hope the other persons that are listening, their Creole is better than mine. But one of the things that we oftentimes ignore, and I had, and the reason I'm speaking from experience, I also had the impressions that debt avoidance was or could be equated to financial and economic prosperity, until the point where Courtney mentioned and Luana mentioned about having good debt versus bad debt. Now, you want to let every time somebody comes into a credit union for a loan, we ask them about the credit history. And sometimes for us, when you're talking about the risk management, sometimes it's better to have somebody with a poor to medium credit history than somebody who doesn't have any at all, because you are now able to advise them and counsel them as to what best approaches to use. Like, for example, a few folks would come into us and said, listen, they want to take something on hire purchase. And sometimes they would decide, you know what, it's better to go and take a loan at a credit union and purchase it cash than to take it out on hire purchase, because you might, this is again good and bad debt. You might spend about 6 or 7% interest on that loan at the credit union, whereas a higher purchase you might spend anywhere between 18 to 34%. But of course, you might be blindsided by nothing down, and you'll go head on into it. So you have to manage your money. And again, this brings us to the other point. People who want to run away from debt, it's all good. It's all good to say you're debt free. I don't want to be debt free. I want to be economic and financially prosperous. And if that means that I get to incur a little bit of debt and manage it properly, then it's good. We talk in business about other people's money. When you take your money to invest in it, you have to look at the cost of it for foregoing your immediate needs to satisfy, to take out your funding to satisfy what is it that you're looking to do, as against going to the credit union and take Luana's money. All right, borrow Luana's money at the credit union, and I use Luana as a prop. She's a good friend of mine. Borrow Luana's money, borrow Terrence's money, borrow Courtney's money at the credit union. All right, and you pay back the credit union 4 or 5%, and you invest it in a business or whatever startup. You're making a return of 30, 40%, and you pay that back quite comfortably, and you have not put in a single bit of penny from yours. You might just put in about a 5% that is required to contract the loan. You see? So you have to look at the opportunity cost of getting, and that is why the billionaires we have seen since the advent of COVID to now, the top 5% of the billionaires have more than tripled their wealth. And why have they done that? Have they not borrowed? Have they used their own resources? I mean, when we look at and just a segue, when they look at the world's richest person who is actually contemplating acquiring Twitter,
He did. He bought it.
he bought it, right? Do you think he put up his own money?
Nope.
And you would think that somebody that has more than $200 billion sitting there would use his own money, because that's what most of us would do. No, no, no. He got a couple of good friends, and they said, "Listen, we'll come together." He get the bank's money. So the other people money's concept. So those who want to live the entire life debt free, kudos to you. Just show me where to borrow economically, like the credit union, and get me some great projects, and I'll show you how we can multiply that money in quick time.
Yeah, and let me come over to anyone else who has any comments based on the Facebook Live comments. But before we do, let me just remind our audience that you're listening to Roots Connections on Q. I'm your host, Simone Mathieu, and today we are joined by a very esteemed and knowledgeable panel of financial experts, financial enthusiasts. So we have Mr. Phoenix Belfield, we have Miss Courtney Drygo, Miss Luana Laura, and Mr. Havis Badwell, and we're talking about securing your financial future at any age. So let me come over if you have any comments, and then if not, what I would like us to talk about next is simple changes, because let us face the reality of what is going on in the world. You know, so many people have lost their jobs. So many people are underemployed, right? So I think I can hear many people in our audience saying, well, you know, I simply do not have enough money to even save anything. And here you guys are talking about investing money. So let me come over to you. The floor is open if you have any comments based on the Facebook comments, or if you want to address that question that I just posed.
You know what, Doc? You know, you made it's a valid question, and it's a good point. People are underemployed. People were furloughed because of the pandemic, and there are jobs out there now. People just don't want to work. People are changing jobs like they're changing shirts. But I'll tell you this: even in my business, we just had a conference in DC last week, and we had one of our carriers there, and we were talking about during the pandemic, our business grew exponentially. This woman asked me yesterday, I was in a Costco's buying some stuff, and she called me. She asked me some advice. It's a friend of mine. She always calls and asks for some advice. And I was telling her, she says, when you started Tuesdays with Terrence in 2020, what percentage of your business grown by? 5%? 10%? I, without hesitation, I said 1,000%. She said, what? I said, yes. Because what happened during the pandemic, even for people who are in America, if you are a U.S. citizen or a legal resident with a green card and social security number, we're hiring. Come on board. We'll teach you what we do. All right. You can make an extra $1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, $10,000 a month if you choose to, part-time, while keeping your regular job if that's your career. I mean, I'm a vegan. I can't fry chicken. I can't do hair. I don't know how to do breaks. And the only thing I do is this. And I try to explain to people, it's simply this. Even though we are in hard times, in March, I believe inflation was up 8.75%. And I believe that inflation is the highest in 40 years, since 1982, when I graduated high school. And the average American is paying $327 to $328 extra a month for expenses. So let me tell you guys, yeah, I'm a big sports fan, but you may need to cut off some stuff. Netflix, Hulu, don't cut off the gym membership, but the gym membership. There may things you have to do because you can go walking. In Dominica, when I was a little boy, fellas used to do weights. They used to take, like, I don't know, wood and put some rocks on it and lift it up. Do whatever you got to do, but you got to change. You got to have a paradigm shift. You got to change your mindset. And what you have to start doing, if I heard someone said, if you're hanging with 20 broke people, you'll be the 21st broke person. And I'm not picking on broke people. I'm making a point. Listen
Right.
to this, guys. It's paramount that you listen to this. Change your circle.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in Dominica and when you see Mr. Felix around, ask him questions. You see Attorney Dry go around, ask her questions. You see, Luana around, ask questions. Change your circle. If you're hanging out with the same, I'm not calling your friends losers, but if you're hanging around with the same losers all the time and they're not edifying you and they're not taking you to the next level, exponentially bringing you up, you need to change your circle because it's not them, it's you. So, Doc, I know things are hard. People are losing, but you know what? You got to save no matter what. You may have to use coupons. When you go to a store, ask them, you got any coupons? For most people love Amazon, right? I've never ordered anything personally on Amazon, but I've had friends do it for me. And I'm saying to you, cut down on the Prime. Because if you get Prime, you get it quicker. There are ways you can do. You're spending some of your monies inefficiently and unknowingly. And like Mr. Phoenix said, opportunity cost is key, man. If you're losing opportunity cost, for example, what you're killing yourself, because Albert Einstein, I think, was the one who said that compounding interest is the eighth wonder of the world. If you're not making money on your money like the wealthy does, and I put it in our private chat right there, I said the rich uses OPM, other people's money. Only the current you can take care of the future you. Pay yourself first. I don't care what you pay yourself, but pay yourself first and let it grow. And don't compare yourself to your neighbor because you don't know what your neighbor is doing. Don't be like the Joneses. Be like you. You are a designer, original, created by God, which cannot be duplicated. So do your own stuff. I yield the mic to my esteemed colleagues.
Yes, Luana, let me come over to you because I know you're on the ground. What are people saying to you? I don't have money. What are they saying to you?
Well, we acknowledge that we are in challenging times due to the pandemic. A lot of people would have lost their jobs, but they would have also seen the importance of managing money in early 2020. And that was a good thing because it brought more awareness. Now, as I rightly said, personal finance is personal. So, in order for you to make a change, you need to first become aware of your situation. And at Finance Focus, we are practical. We use practical tips to improve our situation. Now, I like to look at things as money as two sides of a coin. We have the income side and we have the expenses side. So let's look at the expenses side. You feel like you're overcommitted. You feel like, your income is not sufficient to take note of your expenses. So let's look at what you're spending on. Some people may argue, but I don't really buy clothes. I don't really, do so many things. I feel like I don't know where my money's going. But when we actually sit and we break down where that money going, we notice that, they eat out a lot. They have a lot of subscriptions that they're not really using. They have impulse, emotional spending that they cannot control. So all these things tend to evade their spending and it affects their expenses side. Now, for the individuals who they've tried their best to track their spending, they've cut back on a lot of things and they're still in a bind, we now have to look at the income side of the coin. What are your skills? What can you market? What can you monetize? We have a lot of hidden talents and skills. We just need that confidence to act on it. And as Phoenix rightly said, sometimes you don't need money to start your business. You can just start. Have your friends and family support your venture, give samples, build on that skill and that talent, and little by little your income increases. But wait, we have a tendency to increase our spending at the same
Yes.
pace as our income. So that's where we need to be mindful. If you're making a little extra money this month, or you got a back pay, or you've got some extra money from a family member, what are your financial goals? What are your priorities? Where should you put that money? Is it in something that's going to multiply for you? Is it in something that's going to pay a debt so that it can increase your cash flow? So we really need to become aware. We need to look at what we're doing. And it all starts with a budget. Now, in my experience, when you say the word budget to
Ugly
individuals,
word.
they
Ugly word.
cringe because they're like, you're trying to tell me what to do with my money. But there's a common misconception that we think when we say to budget is because we're broke. But the billionaires budget, the Fortune 500 companies budget. Who are we to not budget the money? That is how you're going to know what you can either save, spend, invest, pay debt.
Absolutely. And this is such an important conversation. It's such an engaging conversation, Luana and everyone, that I'm getting ideas for other programs. So, as Luana mentioned, what can you monetize? Immediately, the thought came to my mind of other income sources, because many of the wealthiest people in the world do not have a single income stream. They have several other income streams that is bringing in money to them, and that is how they're able to amass the money that they have. So, Courtney, let me come over to you for your thoughts, and also I want us to switch gears and start talking about simple changes we can make today to secure our financial future at any age, and also to leave that all important legacy for our future generations. So, Courtney, let me come over to you.
So I had the privilege of going to primary school in Dominica, and of late, I've seen a number of my classmates start businesses and thinking about secondary streams of income, thinking about side hustles, and asking, what can you do? Are you an event planner? Can you start a party planning business? Are you really, really fit? Can you be a personal trainer who shows people what to do and motivates them along the way? A lot of people are looking to be fit. So thinking about even these little things that we don't necessarily think of like as skills, but it's like you're good at it. And can that help someone else? And also really important to budget and know where your money is going. But to that point, I will also add that education. So even when times are hard and you may not have the money to manage at the moment, taking the time to educate yourself in this moment so that when you do have the money, you know what to do with it. Because there will always be someone waiting to tell you what to do with your money. There will always be someone ready to tell you what you should, what you shouldn't, what's the next great investment. And so spending that time educating yourself makes it so that when you do come into a little extra, you have a sense of what you need to be doing with it. So I think particularly when times are hard financially, taking the moment to teach, to gather information, to research, because hopefully things change. And when things change, you will know what to do with that money. And then something else that I want to stress is knowing your net worth. Sometimes your income may not be great, but do you have a home? Do you have land? Do you know what your assets are? Are you aware of your net worth? Do you know how your debt or what you owe compares to what you own? Know that number so you know where you stand and you know exactly what kind of financial moves you can make. And calculating your net worth doesn't require you to have a great amount of income. When we listen to celebrities, right? Like everyone knows Beyonce's net worth and who's worth $1 billion and who's worth. Do you know your net worth? And that's a very important number to know. So I would say, especially those two things, educate yourself in this moment and also take stock of your net worth and your financial health.
Yeah, and we're going to begin the education process today, because I think one of the things is that there's so much information out there. It is so overwhelming. So, what I want us to do, which is why I asked everyone to grab a pencil and paper earlier, is not only share your own personal, podcast, your own personal business, but just kind of tell us where we can find simple beginning information, intermediate information, advanced information in regards to managing our finances. But Phoenix, let me come over to you. Simple changes we can make today to secure our financial future. For example, I know one of the things that is very popular now is auto saving. So when you use your debit card, whatever change is left is automatically put into your savings account. So that way it becomes a no-brainer. And I also like the concept because let's face it, all of us pay bills every month, right? Why not make a financial date? We go on dates with our boyfriends, our girlfriends, our husbands, whomever. But why not set a financial date every month and say, this is the date I am going to budget, as Luana recommended, that ugly word that most of us don't like, but it's important. And I'm also going to look at my finances. So put a reminder in your phone every month of a date that is convenient. It might be Sunday evening when you're relaxing, you have some downtime where you're able to look at your finances. So Phoenix, let me come over to you.
Yes, thank you very much. Listen, when Luana, Terence, and Courtney speak before you, you just have to be in awe and you listen and you pick up the pieces afterwards. So I was busy grabbing my pen and adding to the knowledge as Courtney said. There are a couple of things I really want to touch on that, but let me just piggyback for a few seconds on the COVID pandemic. One of the things that we have been in our weekly program, which we call the Cooperative Voice, which speaks about matters of importance to the credit union and our membership, we always tell people that listen, everybody's complaining about COVID and everybody's asking about when things are going to be returned to the normal. And what we have been saying for the last 2 years is that when COVID is over or the threat is dissipating, there would be a new normal. And what would happen is that it will now would have tested your resolve. What did you do for 2 years? Did you educate yourself? Did you learn new trade? Did you learn how to use technologies? Did you enhance your skill, your education, your knowledge, discipline? What have you? What did you do in those 2 years? And now we're finding that the persons who would have invested in those areas are now reaping significant dividends now that COVID is winding up. And so we talked about how is it that we can leave this kind of legacy and what are some of the traits that we can pick up along the way that can help us to get to this point, not of financial dependency, but financial independence. How we can become financial literate, or we can uh, choose not to live on a string budget, but we can actually be prosperous. One of the things you would have noticed that from the credit union movement, we launched our digital wallet platform called M Lajan. I know Terence probably know what Lajan means. I'm assuming everybody does.
We
Uh,
do.
but so we've launched this mobile wallet called the M Lajan, which is effectively helps you with with the first point that I want to raise, which is about tracking your expenses. Now, Luana made mention about budget, and every time you mention that taboo word, people look like, okay, they either say they don't know how to do it, or they tell you that they're making too little to budget. And I once told somebody, I said, "Have you created a budget?" They said, "Listen, I know everything that I'm spending." I said, "Okay, tell me what you're spending," and they don't know.
Crickets.
You see, so a lot of times we do not we lose track of our spending, and that is why, for example, the Mlajan wallet comes in so handy because when you spend, everything is recorded. For example, let's look at our friends who, let's say, minibus drivers. These are the persons that deal heavily in cash. So somebody comes in, they pay you. Along the way, you get hungry, you buy a lunch, you buy a few snack, you pay gas, and at the end of the day, you have a little change in your pocket, and you cannot say how much money you made. If you only if you keep in the receipts, then you can track what you spend. But so people come in now and pay you via the Mlajan wallet allows you to build that transaction financial history, that tracking, so that you can now go back. So when the credit union asks you for credit history or they ask you for something to see how your business has been doing, you can just simply go and download your transaction history and say, hey, listen, this is what I've spent, this is what I've earned. So a lot of times we lose that very important and minute instance of keeping track of our spending. And if we don't track it, we'll lose the impact of being able to be on top of what we're doing. The other thing that we want to do, and you mentioned about automation, for example, in our Mlaja app, we have an automated payment mechanism. So you can, if you have to pay a certain amount of money every month, you can just go on the choose the automated feature, and you can choose that particular merchant, and you can set it. Okay, I want to pay that person on the 18th of every month, and this is the amount that I'm going to pay. So you don't lose track of the need to make timely payments, because a lot of times credit card, people would say credit card is bad, but sometimes the problem is when we don't honor that commitment on time,
Mhm.
that is when it becomes, because it's the window of opportunity. If you settle, some companies say if you settle within a certain period, you pay no percent, but not all of us are able to do so, or not all of us remember to do so. So there are a couple of things that we can do. We have to be able to do the budgeting aspect. We have to be able to track our expenses. We also have to be able to set up that automated payment system so we don't end up with reconnection fees. So for example, you have to pay your Dawasco, on the 15th, or on a specific day of the month, you have to pay your bills. You can set it to pay your bills at that particular point in time. We mentioned about, I know he talked about, when Terrence mentioned about cutting subscription, I cringed when he mentioned Netflix, because if it wasn't for Netflix, I don't know what would have happened to me post COVID.
Right.
But I borrow on the wisdom of Courtney and Lauren when they said, listen, if it's going to cause you to generate, and this is my own bias,
Mhm.
because Netflix causes me to relax my mind.
Yep. Yep.
And puts me in the frame of mind for greater productivity. That was just on the
Mhm.
side note. But we also need to live within our means. And we spoke earlier about other people's money, and mind your own business, MYOB. Now, I cannot make this, I can take all of the wisdom of Luana and I can put it in practice. But if I am making decision like Courtney, using Luana's technique, I will still not achieve what is it that she's proposing that we're going to achieve, because I am focusing my decisions based on the situation of somebody else. You don't know their pool of resources. You don't know who their clientele is. You don't know who they're catering to. You don't know the spending patterns and the discipline. So you have to focus those energies on how your individual situation. So you make decisions based on that. And I will pause there to enjoy some of the wisdom from my other colleagues.
Yeah, thank you so much, Phoenix, for your insight. Yeah, so let's go around the room, and I want us. This is where the pen and the paper comes in, because we've covered so many topics, and I think our audience have lots of questions and maybe even want a private consultation at this point. So we're going to go around the room and we're going to share important resources for anyone who would like additional information, including how someone might get in touch with you personally. If you have a website, a Facebook page, a podcast. So I want you to say the information very slowly, because remember, this is radio. So say the information very slowly, and please repeat it twice so that those who are interested in taking down the information will not miss anything. So, Courtney, let me come over to you, because I think what you're doing is simply exceptional with that podcast that you started so that everyone can follow along. So, tell us how often your podcast is uploaded, how can people tune in, and everything else you would like to share with us this evening.
Okay, so my podcast is called Spondulix,
Spell.
and I'm going to spell it. I want to say that it is a slang or an old term for money. So it's not a word that we use today, but it's how we would say like dough or l'argent, or so it's Spondulix, and you would spell it Spondulix. That's Spondulix. Spondulix. Anywhere that you listen to podcasts, it can be found. So that's on Google's podcast platform, on Anchor's podcast platform, on Apple's podcast platform, also on Spotify. So you can simply Google Spondulix podcast, and any one of those should pop up. There's also a website, Spondulix Pod. So spondulixpod.com, and you can find the podcast episodes there as well. And for people who like Instagram, there's also an Instagram page, Spondulix Pod, or at Spondulix Pod on Instagram if you want to follow along. On the Instagram page, I share just little tips, little tidbits. Some of us learn through listening, and so listening to the podcast is very helpful. But I know that a lot of people also learn through reading tips and things like that. So Some stuff is on the website and also on Instagram if you learn differently. But as far as other resources, I just want to encourage people to look things up. I've learned a lot from websites like NerdWallet, where they really break down concepts. So if you want to learn about compound interest, if that's something that you heard tonight and you're not sure what that is, a website like NerdWallet would really break down to the basics, what is compound interest. And another really good website is Investopedia. And they really take it step by step and break it down. And that's Investopedia and NerdWallet. If you are looking for where should I go to find information, those two places are excellent places to start. And of course, I encourage you to take a listen to the podcast. I love talking money, and I always invite my audience, come talk money with me. And I would love to invite you along.
Do you have an email address if anyone wants to reach you directly?
So my direct email is my first name last name @gmail.com. So you can reach me that way as well. And also, if you would just send a DM over Instagram, if you prefer that method, I'm reachable there as well.
Sure. And it's Courtney, COURTNIE.
Yes.
.DRIGO. So again, COURTNIE.DRIGO@gmail.com. So Courtney, thank you so much for providing us with your insight today. And of course, I'm a huge fan of NerdWallet. That's one of the resources Courtney mentioned, as well as Investopedia, right? So like encyclopedia, but Investopedia instead. So you can look up those resources to get started. Terrence Havis, let me come over to you. Resources and your contact information for our audience.
Well, basically, I use Facebook a lot because I deal with more mature clients. Us old folks, like we're not young like Courtney, and I do have an Instagram as well. I'll give that to you. But I'm on Facebook as Havis. My first name Havis. My last name is Badwill for you Dominicans and in Canada and in England. BARDOUILLE. And when we come to America, people start saying Badui. Well, if you're Dominican, it's Badwill. Anyways, Facebook, you can find me on Instagram at Badui Financial 64. And I have a personal Instagram as well if people want to follow that. I put a lot of financial stuff on there. It's just HTB, my initials, HTB Nice 64. That's my Instagram code. And my website, actually, I paid for it last year. And they're waiting on me. I'm so busy. I don't have time to do videos. The lady talked to me today, and she's like, we're supposed to go live in December and January and February and March. So I said May 1st. She said, how about May 5th? Because you didn't give me anything. So May 5th, I'll have a website, Badui Financial or BFSfinancial.com, and you'll be able to follow me there as well. BFS is for Badui Financial Services, so BFS.com. But on Facebook, the best way to interact with me is Facebook, WhatsApp. People's like, man, if you go on my Facebook page, you see my phone number. And it's not a secret. I've given advice to people in Canada, England, St. Martin, Dominica, Antigua, St. Lucia, Mexico. And the advice that I give them is traditional advice. I'm only licensed here in the United States of America. So even yesterday, I spoke with someone who's a financial advisor in Canada, a Dominican. And there's two clients in Canada that I referred him to because I've spoken to them and I can help them there. And he actually is going to reciprocate and send me some clients here in the US. So I'm willing to help people. You see someone, I think it was Courtney, who said financial literacy is not that hard and you just gotta save. And the concepts are the same. So listen, folks, Havis Badwill, find me on Facebook and let's have a conversation. And I'll tell you what you should do, whether you are here or abroad. That's how you find me.
Thank you, Havis. Luana, nice and slow.
Okay, thank you, Simone. And I'm busy following all the different handles that are being shared here. For the individuals who are not following Finance Focus as yet, they can head on over to myfinancefocus.com. It's a website, myfinancefocus.com, and they will have access to our YouTube channel. There is also a blog section where I write about money management and entrepreneurship. But of particular interest on that site is if you want to know your relationship with money, you can head over to this site and take the 2 minute money personality quiz. It will tell you a lot about your relationship with money and some of the challenges that you face and how you can address them. And immediately after receiving your results, you can contact me immediately because I also provide financial coaching. And that is a service that is not really popular in Dominica because, a lot of people don't know that they can actually ask for help in managing their money. So for the individuals who want to make that finance date, they can make that date with Finance Focus, and every month we can meet to speak about your money, your goals, your task with money for the month. Um, Secondly, I don't only work with individuals, but I work with entrepreneurs. So the content that Finance Focus provides is curated for both individuals and entrepreneurs, business management. I'm also a micro business, so I'm able to assist individuals in building strategies to grow their business, prepare their financial reports, do business plans and projections. So they can also access all these services on the website. If they want to get into contact with me directly, they can follow the Instagram page at Finance Focus 767. I'm also on Twitter on that same handle. I'm on TikTok on that same handle. And my largest audience is on Facebook. And on Friday, we will be releasing a new Financial Friday video. So they should head over to the YouTube channel, Finance Focus Consultancy, and subscribe so that they can have access to free financial content. Who doesn't like free information? And we acknowledge that there's a wealth of information out there, but if you follow Finance Focus, it is broken down simply to your understanding in our Caribbean culture, money management styles. Apart from Finance Focus, you can also look at other handles such as Earn Your Leisure. Earn Your Leisure is an African American finance focus, I like to call them, because they're doing the same thing, but their content is curated into helping African Americans living in America to invest, to manage money, to understand crypto and all of that jazz. And for the females who just want that personal finance touch, there's also Clever Girl Finance. She curates her content for women of all different ethnicities when it comes to managing money. So there is a wealth of information out there. If you want to improve your financial literacy, just type that. You can actually type how to manage money, how to pay off debt, and that information will pop up on the internet.
Hey,
Yeah.
Doc, just
Yes.
before you go to the next panelist to
Mhm.
information, I just want to, I got a Facebook request from you, um, Luana, but guess what? I've been following your stuff. Someone has been posting it on WhatsApp, and I think I owe you checks because I've been using your stuff for a while now. Yes, I use things that you say is things that I teach, and I don't say it as eloquently as you do. But I didn't know, and now that I know who it is, I'll tell you who I was getting it from after because now we're Facebook friends. But I want to tell you, your stuff is excellent. It's right up the alley of stuff that
Thank
I
you.
teach. And by the way, I owe you something when I come to Dominica.
Hey, look for him, Luana. Look for him, Luana. And of course, don't get overwhelmed if you miss any of the information that we are presenting this evening. Because if you have a cell phone that accesses the internet, if you have access to the internet in any way, you can always go on q95da.com for a repeat of this program so you will be able to take notes of all the information that we are presenting this evening. So, Phoenix, let me come over to you. Some resources you might want to share, contact information that you may want to share with our audience this evening.
Thank you very much. And I also follow Investopedia. I like it for its simplicity, and it gives you a very granular approach to some of the more complex terminologies in investment and finance and financial living. You can also follow Luan at Finance Focus. Who doesn't follow her? But the if you're not into social media and so forth, and you want practical hands-on knowledge, and you cannot reach any of them, head on to the credit union closest to you. Right? We have our program that we run every Tuesday, which is a cooperative voice. It's aired on Q95, on DBS, on 10 different social media platforms, also on YouTube. So you can follow us. For those who have YouTube access, you can follow at the cooperative voice. You can also go to our Facebook page of the league, which is at DCSL, and you can also get in touch with us there. But for us, from our vantage point, we want to bring a closer relation, and that's why when Terrence gets to Dominica, he just needs to mention my name, and I'm gonna have representative from all of the credit union call him, ask him what happened to that $500 that you put there, and nothing
All
happened.
right. All right.
All
Cool.
right. So for us, what we want to do, we want you to essentially take the wisdom that Luana, Courtney, and Terrence are providing to you, and then you bundle all of that up, and then you come to the credit union and say, listen, how can we make this a reality? And this is where so we help you take the theory, and we actually put the money in your hands and say, listen, let's get it done. We're in the business of building dreams and empowering people to become financial independent. So it's not only about dreaming about becoming the next millionaire or having your own business or so forth. It's about actually taking practical steps. So you can reach out any one of the credit union social media pages, because we represent all of them. I cannot say one without mentioning the other five. So you can join, whether it's National Cooperative Credit Union, Marigot, Grand Bay, St. Mary's, Central, or West Coast. We have 25 branches and sub branches spread all across the island. In fact, we're the only financial institution that have more than 3 branches in Dominica. We have 25. Right. So you can get in touch with any one of the credit union. You can also reach us by email at dculeague@dcsl.org. And I'm going to spell it out. DCULEAGUE at dcsll.org. So you can send us an email. If you want to reach us on WhatsApp, the WhatsApp number is, let me get it for you. I don't even WhatsApp myself. It's 767-612-8325. That's 767-612-8325. You can message us there and tell us if you're having any problem reaching any one of the credit unions. Say, hey, League, I need you to get in touch with the credit union because my name is Terrence and I want to find out how I can put some money there.
Well, I want to thank everyone. I want to thank you for joining us this evening. Of course, we're going to come back around the room for your final thoughts, but let us also see what Facebook is saying at this point. So let's see. Penny, you need to take a loan from your own money you have in the bank. Don't take over what you have. Optimistic Felix says, big up family, great conversation. Thank you, Optimistic. Jennifer Daisy, always great to see you, watching from St. Martin. Chris Seja, listening from Anguilla. We have quite an international audience with us this evening, so thank you for being here. Chris Seja also says, that's true, bro. Adelaide Joseph, the money is there. You just need to reactivate the account. They're still talking about the credit union account, Phoenix. You will have a few paperwork to fill out, which you can request from them. And if you're living abroad, these documents must be notarized and can be emailed to them. If you're a member of the NCC, you contact them on Messenger and they respond within 48 to 72 hours. My experience. Wow, Adelaide sounds like she works for the credit union. Phoenix, can you confirm what she's saying?
Oh, I can more than confirm. Because, in fact, most of the credit unions, I should probably say all of them, respond within 24 hours. Sometimes, of course, we have to sift between the persons who have a real need and those who are just simply attempting to spam your account. So you might find some of them may tardy a little bit. If you message on a weekend, you might not get a quicker response. But if you message during the day, particularly so, if you message during working hours, somebody is going to respond to you. So I've been seeing quite a few messages going backward and forward, and I know quite a few. And there are also the others, because remember, we also in the age of digital awareness and sensitivity. So there's certain conversations that cannot be had on social media. So what would normally happen? Somebody contacts the credit union and said, "Hey, I have an account. My account number is," stop right there. Send us an email, give us a call, and let's discuss the details, because you don't want people to publish their account details on social media or personal or private information. So, some things, general queries that you want to know, like for example, if you go on the website and it's not there, you want to know the percentage loan, you want to know when is the next AGM, you want to know what is the if you're Terrence, and I'm going to pick on you until you come back to Dominica, how can you reactivate your account? What are the savings rates and what's happening with the credit union? All of those things you can get those information readily available. But if you want to know the account balance, if you want to know how can you change the signatories to the account or something like that, that would require a bit more detail, because the person, as you mentioned, some of the documents for submission have to be notarized, and you also want to know your members. So you want to ensure that the person who's overseas, so if Courtney comes in and says, "Courtney," you have to ensure that it is the Courtney from Spondylics and not another Courtney. All right. So you have to establish that verification. And this is where some of our membership gets a bit agitated. But they're oftentimes very relieved when they realize that this is because we want to protect not only their identity, but their financial resources.
Yeah, absolutely. And while you have the mic, Felix, just go ahead and tell us your final thoughts as we wind down for this evening.
Listen, there's no, we often say that if the mountain was smooth, we couldn't climb it. And many of the challenges that we will find in life, whether it's of a financial nature, a personal nature, whatever nature that you have, you will go through testing times to get there. One of the things I've always learned, and this is from my personal experience, other person's experience do not have to be your experience. There's a reason why Terence and Luana and Drago went before us and have gone through the detail. We do not need to rebuild the tower. All we need to do is listen, read, and learn, and put in those things, put them into our everyday behavior. A lot of persons often say, "Listen, we do not have what it takes. I do not have the resources, or I don't have enough money. I don't have enough money to start the business." Listen, if you're into consulting or you're into painting, you can. I've seen people who've started businesses just from Facebook, opening a free Facebook account and doing advertising. The same thing you're doing for free. People are making money. There's this guy who's making tons of money on TikTok just by doing this. You see? And just this. He's not producing anything. He's just doing this. And he's making tons of money. So it's how, according to Drago, how you can monetize what you're doing. So learn the concept of good debt versus bad debt. Learn how is it that you can manage your finance. Learn how is it that you can use other people's money to make money for yourself. And best of all, live life.
Good. Thank you so much, Phoenix. Thank you for joining us. Courtney, let me come over to you. Your final thoughts?
Yes, and this has been said tonight, but I would just reiterate that personal finance is personal, and you are capable of learning what you need to know to manage your personal finances. It's not as daunting as it seems, and there are plenty of people on this panel that are so willing to share information with you, and that have experienced things maybe that you have, or that you can ask questions to. So big things, ask questions, and just be ready and open to learning and putting what you've learned into practice, and being ready to say, my personal finance is personal, and I'm ready to make decisions for my own financial future.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. Luana, your final thoughts?
Yes, thank you, Simone. It's really been a pleasure speaking with you and the panelists and the listeners. One of the points that I want to share, my final point, is that we all have different relationship with money. We've all had bad, good, different relationships, but it's important to forgive yourself for your past money mistakes. We're going to be spending money until the day that we die. We're going to be making financial decisions throughout our life. So don't hang up on your relationship with money in the past. As Courtney said, you are capable of learning. So whenever you make a mistake with money, or you kick yourself for going over that budget, forgive yourself for that mistake and tell yourself, I can do better. Aim to be better. Aim to have a better relationship with money, because that's what we do. That's what we're going to do. We're going to be spending money until the day that we die. So forgive. Don't be too hard on yourself. Anxiety
Absolutely.
gives stress,
Yeah.
and one of the great issues that we have in life is managing money. So just forgive yourself. Focus on your
Yeah.
financial self care, and
Right. And
be fine.
sometimes when we don't forgive ourselves, it paralyzes us. So now, we have the burden of remembering the mistakes that we made, and now we're paralyzed because we are stuck in the mistake rather than figuring out a way to move forward. Mr. Havis Badwill, final thoughts, sir?
Thank you, Doc. Dr. Simone, I can tell the people, you've heard Luana, you've heard Miss Drago, excuse me, and you've heard Phoenix. Those people are excellent in their commentary tonight. I've learned some things from them as well. But I will leave you with this to our listeners and our viewers tonight. Pay yourself first. As soon as we get off here, I'm going on a Zoom with my chief marketing officer. And he says this: only the current you can take care of the future you. So, right now, the person that you are right now, that's the only person that can take care of the future you. So, don't rob yourself. You paying everybody else. You paying everybody else. You're returning tithes, offerings, you going to feds, doing it. Pay yourself as well. And I will tell you this, folks. Remember, even if you don't know what to do, step back, take your time, and just pay yourself and follow these people and listen to what they're saying. I don't care if you're in Dominica, like I said, or in Canada, or in Europe, or Mexico, or wherever in the Caribbean, wherever in the world that you are, use social media in a positive way. I know small business owners here and abroad who post so much foolishness on their page and they're not successful. If you're going to use social media, it's free, man. Use it to grow your business and get powerful. And guess what? You might be the next person to buy Twitter. God bless you. I yield it back to Dr.
Well, if you have $44 billion, you can. But then again, Phoenix reminds us to use other people's money. So we just have to figure out
OPM.
how we can
OPM.
find some
We
people
just
to
need
give
to
us
know that
$44 billion.
we just need to know the Terrences.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for being here. This was quite an engaging and informative conversation. We say good evening to Esther Durant Kazmi on Facebook. Betsy Davis, I see you. Thank you for being here.
My
Rose
sister.
Dwyer.
Yes. Yes. You got to get on your
Yes.
show, Doc.
Rose Dwyer says good information. Adelaide,
My
beautiful
sister,
program.
Rose Dwyer.
DTM Jackie, Barbados, listening to this interesting conversation. Evelina, very great program and very great information. Thank you, everyone. Yanni, very informative. Thank you. Luana posted My Finance Focus to take the 2-minute money personality quiz to learn about your relationship with money. Carlson Shillingford, good evening. I'm late. Well, Colson, the good news for you is you can jump on q95da.com and get the entire program. So we just want to thank everyone for joining us this evening. You've been listening to Roots Connections on Q with Simone Mathieu. And our topic this evening was securing our financial future at any age. So as our time together comes to an end, let me say a special thank you to the panel, our radio and Facebook and YouTube Live folks. Again, good evening to Mr. G and the Q95 family. Thank you for this platform where we are able to inform and educate our audience. So as the world continues to evolve, continues to rapidly change, we will continue to explore changes right here on Roots Connections, and we will continue to explore the benefits, because I always say, when changes come about, we always think of the negative, but many times we miss the opportunities because we are not thinking of the positives of those changes. So we will continue to look at the impact of these changes, and we'll continue to look at practical and concrete recommendations for economic and financial independence. And we hope to be an inspiration. We hope that we're inspiring the young people, the youth of Dominica, in Dominica, outside of Dominica, and the world. We hope we're inspiring them to do a little better, to to be productive, to take a hold of their financial situation, and just to create direction in their lives. So that is one of the hopes of this program. So again, don't forget Q95 FM on Facebook and YouTube, as well as Push Past 10. And if you would like more information about everything that we do, you can also follow me at pushpast10.com. So PUSHPAST10.com. And if perchance you don't remember some of the information, you want to ask a question, you can also contact me at pushpast10@gmail.com. So again, we will see you at the next program. Our next program will be May 11th, and we will be already celebrating our first anniversary of Roots Connections on Q. How time flies when you're having fun. So, I truly enjoy this program. I enjoy being able to reach out to you and connect with you in this important way. So again, May 11th, we'll be celebrating our first anniversary of Roots Connections on Q. And I thought we would take it as an opportunity to showcase all the important work that Dominicans and associations are doing around the world, so we can see that how we are engaging our communities and how we are giving back to Dominica. So I look forward again to being with you every other Wednesday right here on Q95, the big station, as we continue to create a path forward, as we continue to move our lovely island, Dominica, forward. So again, good night, good
And
evening.
before you go,
Yes,
Simone,
Phoenix.
let me be presumptuous and thank you on behalf of my colleagues for an
Yes.
excellent host.
Thank
And also,
you.
we were joined. It was expertly done. I don't think anybody could have wrapped up these crazy and critical ideas into something that is equally palpable and digestible in 2 hours. So excellent work done by yourself and the folks at Q. Thank you very much for having us.
Oh, that is very nice of you. Thank you so much for saying so, Phoenix. I truly enjoy what I do, and I hope it shows in the execution. So, again, thank you for being here, and everyone, have a great night. We will see you again in 2 weeks. Take care. Thank you, guys. Say bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah,
Good
bye.
night.
All right, good
Good
night.
night.
Thank you, Lambi.
Joe! Rastafari. Oh, oh, children, oh.